All right, guys. Sorry for the delay on getting this one. I wanted to get the church elders here with me to be able to help on the recruiting talk today. Um, Before we get into stuff, though, you need to ask some questions, though, too, right? We need to get some feedback from people. We need to get some. We just talked a little bit ago about essentially putting together a simple Q&A. If there are questions that you have on stuff, we need to know that so we can help. Okay. Um, some of these things there are things that you guys have heard before. I don't know that it's a bad thing to think about it, but one of the things we kind of say is like our 5 pillars of what we would think about for recruiting and essentially choosing a school, right? Um, where do you want to be in the world, right? If you don't want to be in Iowa, you probably are not going to look at schools in Iowa, right? Think about where you want to be. The education, right? If you want to be an engineer and you're going to a school without engineering, that's not going to line up. So if you have a specific need there, you need to think about that, that first. Does that school support what you want to do from an educational standpoint? And that's the biggest thing you're going there for. The coaching staff, right? Do you like that staff? Are they going to be able to help you, right? Are they going to be guys that are going to be around? Have they been there for a while? Are they going to be there for 1 or 2 years and be gone? Right? I mean, those are things you need to think about. Can that group that's there help you, and are you comfortable? Does it match the style that that you are as a player? Um, the depth chart, I think, is always a decent one, right? What do you want? And I don't know that there's a bad answer for this, but what do you want in terms of, do you need to play from day one? Are you good redshirting a couple years? Those are things to think about in terms of what's valuable to you, because that might dictate where you end up going. Okay. And then lastly, the finances of it all. Is it something that you can afford? Now, I don't think there really is any 5 out of 5 out there. I think you're probably going to always have a couple that are off a little bit, but I would say you better be 3 out of 5 at least, or it's probably not going to end up being a good situation. Of that, though, and all those things, realize that you are going to make it the situation that it is for yourself, right? Like, you could go to the best place in the country and it not be a good fit for you, and you could go to a place that is not very desirable and make it the best experience possible, right? It's how you make it and what you make out of it that's important. Based on that, guys, what do you any feedback or thoughts on those, or personal experiences and any of those things?
No, I think it's a good start.
Okay. Communicating with coaches, right? We've had a lot of these things that have come up in a couple topics of communicating. First of all, making videos, right? What should be in a video, right, that we're going to make? I don't know a ton about football. Football seems to be one where you send a lot of in-game footage and in length and a lot of game stuff, and it works out. I don't know that necessarily is the case. In baseball, I think when you're sending a video, if it's more than 5 minutes, it's probably way too long, right? You got to figure you have, in most cases at the high end, you have 3 paid staff members plus a volunteer or 2 potentially, or student coach. They don't have the time to look at hundreds and hundreds of those things every day, right? A video has to be something that is short and quick, that allows them to say, okay, I want to see more of this player. When you can too, in 2020, you got to put metrics in anything that you're sending out as much as you possibly can, right? You have to put a radar gun up in something. You have to put a stopwatch in something, right? It's very easy to do now. If you have a video that's long, that's longer, that just shows simple swings, I think we need to do a better job of that. What do you guys think on like sending a video? Is there something specific that you look at?
Yeah, I would say I keep continuing to hear of people asking or telling about situations where they're having like private companies create these, very nice videos, and I think they would be great for your own personal use and whatnot. But those things are not what the colleges are looking for. They're looking for quick and dirty, just like it could be a 15-second video, as long as there is a radar or a watch in there of some kind. something to catch their eye, something to keep them looking for more until they can find, until they can see you, especially with where we're at in the climate of things. Whatever you can get down on paper or video and send on, I think is better.
Folk, you get anything on videos? Okay.
You said that.
Okay. Emails. So sending emails to the coaches along those same lines, right? It doesn't need to be a 5-paragraph essay, right? It should be 4 sentences, right? And Graham Sykes of Michigan State a couple years ago, I heard him talk about that, and he makes a very good point. Whatever you do, whatever the best thing is that you do, should be in the first line of the email, right? It should say, Coach, I'm a 4.0 student, right? Coach, I'm a pitcher that's been as high as 95, right? Whatever that needs to be, and then it's, this is who I am, this is who I play for, this is where I go to school, here are your, here's contacts. Here's my summer coach, here's my high school coach, and let me know what we can do for you, right? Like, leave them with a question. Be, again, short and sweet with it all. It doesn't need to be a huge essay. It needs to sound professional, right? But in the same lines of the video, it's got to be short and quick so people can see it. Vogue, you get anything there on emails?
Just
Okay.
make sure that you're responding back quick in a fast time, especially phone calls.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right? Like, returning calls and texts is what I have next, right? Like, I've had several coaches going, hey, I reached out to so and so and I haven't heard from them in a week, or I haven't heard back from whoever. It's okay for you to say, it's certainly okay for you to say, yeah, coach, I don't know that I'm really interested in this program yet, or this is not quite the place for me. That's okay, but you have to communicate though, right? Again, and like I said, it comes back to our relationship with those coaches, right? Like, if we are trying to be the middleman, or you're reaching out to a coach or vice versa, right, and they're not getting back to you, or you're not getting back to them, it doesn't look great on us, right? So be able to say, instead of just saying, that's not a place I want to go, I'm just not going to contact that guy back. Contact him and say, yeah, it's probably not a school I want to end up in. You never know where that coach is going to be in 3 years or 2 years, where, in a transfer situation, you just never know how things are going to play out. So make sure you're doing a good job, like Vogue is saying, replying to things, and again, just being proactive in the whole process, right? Trying to be assertive in it all. Recruiting services, right? There's a bunch out there that, my take is this: I think there's a lot of bells and whistles in those things. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to be able to do it. I don't know that it's necessary though. I think you can do as much as you can do exactly what most of those services do with an email account and a YouTube account and a little bit of assertiveness on your own. That said, I don't know that they're bad. They help you in the situation, but I think there's some wasted there, I guess I could say. What do you guys feel on any of those things? Anything in particular that you think about with, like, the service that are out there? You didn't use anything like that, right? No?
I think that those things can be useful, especially in the situation where it's like trying to spread as big of a net as you can across essentially the country, and you'll probably get some contacts through those that we wouldn't know. I mean, these might be some less publicized places or smaller places or whatever it might be, but you'll get some attention from those things. I think though that most of the time the kids that we're working with are not needing stuff like that, and are between the communication that Chuck has with the coaches and that you have with the coaches. I mean, that's a lot of times that's what these coaches want to see anyways. I mean, these are baseball coaches. They're not necessarily high society here. So just send them some quick videos. Send them, talk to them. Like Chuck said, the bells and whistles of that aren't wrong necessarily, but they aren't. That's the word. They're not necessary. That's all I got.
Okay, let's talk about showcases, right? Who are they for? When should you do them? What guys are work better at a showcase? I'll bore you. I'll try not to bore you with my career, but I mean, every showcase I ever went to, people were like, "Next, can we see the next guy?" Right? Like I just was not going to look good in a showcase situation. People were going to need to see me play. Right? So there are some guys there that are great at that. There's some that are not. And the simple question is like, when do you go to a showcase? Is when you have something to showcase. Right? Very simply put. Right? When you're throwing the ball in the low 80s, whether that's a 7th grader or it's a junior in high school, that's when you should be going to those things, right? Like when you can hit a ball in the mid 90s, that's your time to go to it, right? When you can run all those metrical things that we've talked about for for a while, and the benchmarks of guys that we're trying to get to, those are the times to do it, right? I mean, now, if you are on the edge of those sort of things and you are young, I don't think it's a bad situation to go as a freshman or sophomore to an event where you can start to understand what it's like to be in one of those situations, right? With a lot of people watching and a lot of things around. But again, like you have to have something to showcase first, right? Before you think about going. What do you have on those, Will? Anything in those? I mean,
No,
some are good, some are not.
Yeah, no, I agree exactly. Once you can showcase something, you should go.
See?
I think it's good to know, to feel comfortable in that situation, but I think that most of the time people overdo those. Most of the time. I think people go to too many of those events. It's not good for training, economy, recovery, all that stuff. And you could be using that same amount of time for training, and then maybe after that training, then you have something to showcase, like Chuck says. But put your money and time into training. I think is going to get you far more where you need to be in terms of a showcase. You could also never go to a showcase and be just fine.
All right, so we'll shift gears a little to this concept of like the Division I or bust type of thing, right? Which we have had some of. I think we want to understand that there are a lot of benefits to playing baseball at the next level, wherever that level is for you, right? Think about the fact that whether you're at a D1, 2, or 3, you're going to walk right into structure, right? You're going to walk right into academic resources. You're going to walk right into picking the right classes, getting to pick your classes first, a built-in network of people, a situation where after the fact you have a whole alumni base and alumni resource of things in the business world or your specific field that have gone through those things. So I think that we lose some of that sometimes in, well, if I don't go to Michigan State, then I'm just not going to play. I think that's awesome that our goals are that high, but realize that there are a ton of value in going to some smaller places that we don't really think about, where the athlete has a huge advantage over just the general student population. And I also, as a person who did it, and especially for all you 21s right now that are kind of stuck in an odd situation, I think we definitely need to look at the junior college route. Very cost efficient, allows you to it essentially is going to prolong your recruiting process, right? It's going to give you another year or two to continue to get recruited by a place that you want to go to, and allow you to be a bigger, stronger person at that time while you're playing, right? I would have never played Division I baseball had I not gone to a junior college. I didn't really like going there. Right? I didn't like being in Dearborn every day at Henry Ford. It wasn't great for me, but I got to play 80 games in 2 years and got recruited from there. So there's some sacrifice there that needs to go with it. What do you guys have along those lines? Any input on those? No. Anything else?
I don't know anything. I think you're good.
Okay. Also, you have to understand too that how you handle yourself is extremely important, right? Extremely important. It may be as important as what the physical tools are that you have. How you move and how you communicate and what your attitude and what your body language all say about you on the field, off the field, what you're doing on social media these days, right? you have to be liked by those coaches, right? A coach has to come up and be able to like how you move around, right? And their eyes need to be drawn to you, and all of those things happen by, I always say, like, put your cool guy attitude away, right? And just go out there and play like your hair's on fire and bounce around and try to be the best you can in every play. Because you might go to a game. I mean, you guys have been there. You're playing shortstop. You might not get a ball hit to you all game long. But how do you take ground balls in between innings? How do you communicate in between pitches? How do you run on and off the field? How's your uniform look? Do you walk up in sloppy uniform and flip flops like I told you in the earlier emails we're not going to do, right? Like, what does that say about about it? To me, that jumps out, and we've had those things brought up to us before. I'll go back to social media as well. I mean, we definitely have had guys that we know that have been crossed off lists because why is this guy saying this on a Twitter platform? I mean, those sort of things happen. Those coaches are checking on you if you have any sort of interest. So you got to think before you type. And lastly, like, to be selfish about it, like, when those sort of things don't happen or happen incorrectly, it comes back on us as looking for, right? I mean, obviously it does for you as an individual, but then it comes back and says, well, what's that organization like? I mean, I think we've worked pretty hard to teach the previous classes and will in the future of how to do it the right way, where people say that you play in our program and that that means something to some coaches, right? Some coaches are going to say, oh, okay, those guys do it the right way. They're coached well, whatever. But there is some recognition that goes with our program, at the college level that is implied. And so you need to be able to continue that and if not make it better, right? Certainly not go in the other direction. So how you carry yourself, again, the silly quote I put on the lineup card every day of how you do anything is how you do everything. And I really feel like that's a pretty important mindset that we have. So you guys have anything there that I'm missing on just like how it looks, how it acts, that sort of stuff? Good, Vogue?
Yeah.
Okay, give us some feedback on this. If you have specific questions, let us know, and we'll do a specific answer to it. So thanks, guys.